Hey, I'm David Haug, Superintendent at Jefferson R-VII. We wanted to put a little bit of a message with the letter that's going out about Senate Bill 68, specifically to electric personal communication devices. And I'm joined by Mr. Alex Rugley, high school principal, Mr. Steve Horn. So in short, when we came back from sort of our summer vacations, and we talked about it early in June as we left, we took a bit of a break and came back to really allow us to kind of think about it. But also, how do we really view this as a school district and how can we make it work? So we stated our philosophy on this is that we agree wholeheartedly with state leadership that these are devices that are impeding the learning process and ultimately on our end kind of sometimes harming kids' progress. So what do you guys see as building leaders at the middle school and high school that maybe when you came back and said, we really do agree with this philosophy?
Yeah, at the high school, I couldn't agree more with what you just said. It's one of those deals that we want to make sure that our students are able to have a productive learning environment, whether that be in the classroom, whether it be in the gym, or wherever it might be. And the reduction in the use of, and really non-use of the cell phones is a big deal for our high school and what we're wanting to do. And we completely agree with the law and the bill and kind of the different facets of it. The biggest thing is just making sure that our students understand and our staff understand the expectation and being consistent with that expectation and moving forward.
And sometimes the why is that we just have to do it. And Mr. Horn, do you have anything to add to that?
I do. Especially at the middle school, it's even different at the high school. You know, we're dealing with a younger group of students who don't have even the maturity of the high school students and understanding the appropriate time to use it and easily distracted. Even a notification when the phone's in their pocket, feeling the phone vibrate or hearing it beep immediately distracts them from the ultimate reason why we're here is instruction and learning. So it's really just those types of distractions throughout the day.
And I think some of this deeper dive into it, and I think we've been pretty advanced in the school district going back to Think Before You Hit Sin years ago and the data that maybe shows how kids are learning differently, acting differently. I know some of the research, when you start looking at devices, when kids get them earlier, they're higher prone to having suicide issues when they're older. And then Mr. Schaefer talked to me the other day about AI studies now that people that are really diving into AI, their brains are almost not active. That scares me. And so I think there's some really big philosophical things here, but the challenge for us is looking at how do we implement this and really send the message that we see this as the betterment of every child. And essentially, we're centering around this concept of prioritizing the learning environment. What is disrupting the learning environment is really where the discipline policy would kick in. And we'll talk about the discipline policy in a minute here, but I'm just going to go ahead and say bluntly to parents out there that expect this to be perfect in the sense that every kid's going to have their phone away. Listen, that cat's out there. That's Pandora's box been open. I'm guilty of it. I check my phone a lot during the school day. And honestly, since I got this summer, I've tried to do a better job of because I know that I check my phone a lot. How are our kids supposed to go cold turkey on this? So my advice to you as a parent that are you, if the child has it and they're disrupting the school, the process of learning, we expect our staff and we will deal with it. If the teacher has their back turned working with another student and your child's coming home saying, well, such and such pulled the phone out and it wasn't dealt with, you got us. Dead to rights. You got it. It's going to be impossible to deal with this all day long. We'll get to part of this here in a second, but again, if you expect perfection from our staff, it's not going to happen. We're going to center around protecting instruction and protecting the integrity of law. A lot of reminders, there's signs that are going up we'll talk about in a second. So I kind of use that example, and full disclosure at the end, I'm going to share a story about this, but you're not supposed to vape at schools either, and some kids vape better than others and can hide it. It's just the nature of the beast. I've been in building level administration since 2003. And I've seen it evolve over a long period of time. Some kids are good at smoking cigarettes at school and hiding it, and I'll share a story at the end you may want to hang around for. And so others aren't, and you catch them. And that's going to be the way it is with the cell phone policies. We're not going to have a perfect environment. But we do see this as a partnership with parents as well. And I think ultimately our mission is not just to enforce a policy or law, it is to improve kids. And so how do you all see the parents' role in this as well? I mean, I would like to think that people see the value in that, and what maybe can parents do to help us out here?
I think for me, I would be looking for parents to help us find ways to implement this in a healthy way, like you talked about, as opposed to looking at it on how can we get around this. And I think that's really the perspective that we as a school have to look at it as a state law. This isn't a school policy. This is a state law. So us as a district, we're looking at how can we implement it to benefit our students. We just need the parents to bring that same mindset. I think we'll all get through this.
Yeah, I completely agree, and understanding that we're all in this together. That's a big part of this, is that we're really a team together. And ultimately, whenever a student comes and walks through our building, we want them to learn, and we want them to learn at a high level. And we believe that this policy and law will help benefit not just students, but also faculty, staff, and our community as a whole.
I think that's kind of the exciting thing about this, is that at first our mission was to, how do we balance all this? And we understand the difficult part of looking at the law is that kids are supposed to have their phones for emergency purposes. We really don't intend to be taking phones over this deal. But on the same token, they're not supposed to have them out. And yet these are very addicting for kids. So we've kind of gotten through that. We've got to this policy, or our plan moving forward. But we're starting to have more conversations about how excited we are at potentially more conversations at lunch, more conversations with kids. What will this do when kids are truly focused in the classroom, better interactions in the classroom? Because there has been a shift in education. Kids are a lot quieter in the hallways anymore. I mean, I know handling discipline situations from 2003 to about 2016, 2017 was completely different than after. Like, I noticed a huge shift. I actually called my dad one time. He was in education. I said, I don't know if I like this about how, he said, well, you got a choice. You can either get out or you can find a way to fix it. And he goes, and your nature's always been to fix it. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here. So daily communication, obviously parents 7 through 12, we actually encourage this too, because the kids, we have a lot of information that goes out through our email. You can use email to contact your student, your child, because they have a Chromebook. You can also contact our office staff. Now grades pre-K through 6, the teachers all have like their, not Dojo app. What are those things?
Sixth grade
Seesaw.
uses
Seesaw. I have stuff like that. I can't remember.
Sixth grade actually uses Dojo.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. So you can contact through those apps. Also contact the office if you feel like you need to reach out to your child and remind them of something during the school day. We have a part here about the student expectations. It's very clear. It says the students are not supposed to have these personal communication devices from the beginning of the school day to the end of the school day. And I think one thing that gets lost in something like this is we start focusing on the phones. We forget the people that are in the buildings. They didn't go to school to the majority of them did not go to school to deal with discipline and put the phones away. I always kind of get a kick out of, you're really out to get my child. Actually, we're not. We really prefer to come to school every day and just deal with all the exciting things that we get to deal with. That's always a misnomer. There's nothing really exciting about that unless we use it as an opportunity to improve the child. But teachers are here to teach. There will be a lot of reminding. We will have these signs placed appropriately in the buildings. By appropriately, I mean probably more age appropriate. I would say Platten, probably just a couple of these up in their building. And I'd say the high school, middle school, they'll be posted probably in every classroom. That'll be at their discretion of where that's at, just as a reminder for everybody. And then the second part of that is, it says including not limited to instructional time, meal times. I expect our staff to enforce the policy during the hallways, but it's going to be more of just reminders. They have things they need to do. They need to go take a quick break. They need to go get a quick copy. We're not going to stop the school day, and kids are just going to pull them out and look at them at times. And we just ask that they cooperate and put them away. It's real simple, in my opinion, on that. And then at the end, it defines what a device is. Last part of the letter here, addressing noncompliance. So we're supposed to outline our discipline procedures. First of all, the signs will be out, lots of reminders. Essentially, the question I'm going to ask if somebody is questioning what we're doing is it disrupting the school day? Is it disrupting basically the learning process? That's really where I think our discipline policy kicks in. I think we've got a very simple system here, and I'll get to number 2 as a why. First of all, the staff, just if it becomes repeated, we're repeated during the classroom of asking a certain student to put it away, That'll be documented on the first offense. If it's just flat out refusal to do it, that'll be documented on the first offense. We're not taking the phones. I don't want our staff to handle it and have that responsibility and everything that comes with it. To me, at that point, it's less about the phone. It's less about just being respectful to the learning environment. Thoughts on that?
No, I completely agree with you. And a key component to this too is on the flip side, that something I want to discuss is, we have an online learning management tool called Canvas at our high school. And per the wording in the law, if it is deemed as an educational purpose, our staff members can ask the students, we have students that turn in their assignments via taking a picture of the assignment via phone and then sending it through the Canvas portal. If it's deemed necessary by the instructor and by our teachers, they are able to do that. And it could be for something else that is deemed necessary by our teachers. But again, we've got to be consistent, and the communication's got to be there, and students have got to make sure, and as well as staff members, that they respect this expectation that has now been set amongst all schools in the state of Missouri.
I think from the middle school, really, parents aren't going to notice much of a difference, and students aren't going to know much of a difference, quite honestly. Middle school in years past, phones aren't allowed. If the teachers see them, they're asked to put them away, and if they continue to not comply with that, then the phone is taken to the office, and we discussed not following directions, not so much the cell phone itself at that point. So really, from a middle school perspective, it's not going to be a huge change. It's just going to be those reminders of getting in those habits.
I think the other thing I want to make sure is very clear, this does policy. We've got these two gentlemen here because we think these are the two buildings that will affect the most.
Absolutely.
And secondly, we don't expect our staff to hunt these down. I think if they see a student with the phone on them walking by, we're not looking for the phone itself. Just ask it to be put away. I think there's a big difference there and put you at ease there. The second part of the discipline process is after the verbal warning, if it becomes repeated, it's going to go into a category that we call disciplinary action for continued disruption. It's called, actually, the title of it is failure to meet conditions of other disciplinary consequences. In other words, we've asked for the phones to be put away. To me, that opens the door to why is there sort of this either rebelling? Why is the student pulling the phone out? Is there some stress in their lives that we can take a different path here? I mean, I don't see the discipline on that end. I think that discipline at that point becomes more tailored to the student if there's something going on in their life that maybe the parent in the school wasn't aware about. Because to me, this is real simple. If you're asked to put the phone away, put the phone away. And do we understand it's a habitual thing, it's a habit thing? I mean, I'm guilty of it. But if a teacher sees it, put it away. To me, it starts to get into something deeper when there's sort of this rebelling against it. Because really, the ultimate goal here is to improve the child. And Steve, you've been in this business a long time. You've also intervention specialist. How much do you see some of the discipline stuff as more a result of some other thing going on or some other trauma going on in a child's life?
I hate to use the phrase all the time, but it's the vast majority of the time there is some underlying factor that's led to the behavior. We have great students, great families in this district, and but sometimes our students are bringing things with them into the school building that we're completely unaware of, and those then affect their behavior throughout the day. And I think we're obviously cognizant of that as a district, and we're going to continue to be with this just like we are in those other situations.
Mm-hmm. You kind of had limited experience compared to Mr. Horn on the back end. Mm-hmm. But what do you've been in the business for a while. You work with athletes too. When you know they're not performing, there's usually an underlying issue. It's not actually the result that you're seeing right in front of you.
Yeah, and I think a key component to all that is understanding and knowing your students in your building. And whenever you're able to develop those relationships with those students and they feel comfortable to come talk to the resources that we have available, we can really dive into those issues and why they're not complying with our expectations of the high school. And I think that's very important in this whole grand scheme of the way that we're moving forward with the beginning of the school year and the expectation as we move on throughout the school year.
So the way to summarize number 2 there is the disciplinary action. Again, I think it's less about the cell phone. We're asking you as family members, as parents, as students to really look at the bigger picture of, philosophically we agree, less cell phone time. I think it's healthier for our kids. On the back end, our discipline process is not to be punitive. is really to open that connection to our families to work with what the possible issue is. Why is there a need to check that cell phone repeatedly? What addictive natures are there? Is there something that's going on that the parent, we don't know what that is. We want to open that up. And it's really how we want to look at and take advantage of this. Because ultimately, I always struggle, and I know we're going on a different tangent here, but our high school has not used ISS since like 2014. And philosophically, I never understood ISS because it's punitive. And my question is what actions are we taking as adults that improves behavior? Not even behavior, performance. Like, what are we doing to open those doors? I know it's a much broader discussion, but that's how we approach this. We see this as a really good thing. I think in 3 years, we'll be curious to look back and see the changes. Just know we're not hunting these. The staff really don't want to deal with this. They really want the kids to come in. Ultimately, when you get into teaching, you really want to be able to walk in the classroom, have no distractions, and be able to teach the material you want to teach because you love it. And you love, growing young minds and growing kids. Unfortunately, that's not how the world works. Kids make choices, or they also have things going on in their lives that cause those distractions that we've really tried to work on. So, as promised, I'm going to share one story. I'm not saying this is a thing of humor. I'm really sharing this as maybe a maybe being reasonable about situations. And you can turn off at this point, it's okay. But this goes back to the cigarette thing. So when I got to Potosi in 2003-04, my first year as assistant principal, we really worked on getting things under control in the cafeteria during lunches. And we'd done a great job. Well, that spring, I started to notice kids were sneaking off. I noticed some of them were smoking. Well, there's this one young man that kept sneaking off. He's a junior. I was like, where is this kid going? And so if you're familiar with Potosi and the Round Building, you would go upstairs and behind it, and there was sort of this tree line, and the practice field and where you threw the discus was up there. But there's really nobody up there. I had walked up there probably 4 or 5 days thinking, he's got to be up here. Like, I know where the other places are, and I've got sight lines. So like on that 5th day, I walk up, and I'm pretty quiet when I walk. And I walk up there, and there's this tree sitting there, and I'm like, I'm ready to give up, right? So about that time, I see this massive puff of smoke come out from under this tree limb. And I pull it up, and there's this kid sitting there just lit a cigarette up. And I was like, come on out, young man. And he pops out. He takes a cigarette, puts it in his left hand, looks at me, sticks his right hand out and goes, Mr. Haug, I just want to shake your hand. I've been smoking since I've been in this like 7th grade and nobody's ever caught me. And I said, well, you know what? I said, there's nobody out here. I said, you go ahead. And he had just lit it. I said, you go ahead and finish that thing off, then we'll go down and take care of the discipline. You know what? We ended up having a great conversation at the end of that. And we actually had a good bond moving forward. I know he's doing great things now, but you could try to be tough with the kid and say, I caught you in this and that. Or he could realize the fact that he had some victory. He'd gotten away with it so long, and I took a few minutes that I was the one to find him. So use a little bit of reason with that. Listen, we want to be in a partnership on this. We see this as a healthy thing. Looking forward to the school year.